Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're peeling back the layers on something truly foundational. We're not looking at market trends or, stock tips.
Yeah.
We are diving into the core difference in mindset, that internal programming that, well, it dictates whether you end up wealthy or just well compensated.
That's absolutely right. And our source material today is, it's just extraordinary because it gives us this direct head-to-head comparison.
Yeah.
We get to follow the journey of one person who was raised under two radically opposing financial philosophies from two very different fathers.
And the contrast is, it's just so stark. You have one father, the poor dad, who was really the pinnacle of academic success.
Oh, absolutely. A PhD, right?
Yeah,
Multiple advanced degrees from places like Stanford, University of Chicago.
Exactly. And yet he struggled constantly. And sadly, when he passed away, he actually left behind bills.
And then you have the rich dad. This man never even finished the 8th grade.
It's incredible.
No diploma. But he went on to become one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. He left an estate valued in the tens of millions.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We really need to understand why those credentials, the professional and scholastic ones, so often fail to translate into wealth.
And how this internal financial programming, this mindset.
Yes, how that is what truly supersedes, every single degree you could hang on the wall.
The amazing thing here, the gift really, was that the author didn't get one doctrine but two. And that constant friction, the need to constantly compare and then choose a path for himself.
That must have been so valuable.
Far more valuable than just accepting or rejecting a single view.
Yeah.
It forced him to think critically.
I just wonder how difficult that must have been, holding two really charismatic but opposing worldviews in your head at the same time. It's a real intellectual workout.
It is. Because you can't be lazy. You're forced to define truth for yourself. And the philosophical differences were extreme, starting with the very nature of money itself.
One dad's ingrained belief, the classic refrain, was, "The love of money is the root of all evil."
Right. Whereas the rich dad, he countered that with this really blunt assertion, the lack of money is the root of all evil.
That's a huge shift.
It's a total reframe. It redefines financial pursuit as a matter of, survival and security, not some kind of moral corruption.
And those worldviews completely dictated their life advice. The educated father would say, study hard so you can find a good company to work for.
All about stability. Employment.
Exactly.
The rich dad's advice, though, was so much more ambitious. He'd say, study hard so you can find a good company to buy.
That's the difference right there. Seeking security versus building the structure.
It's a fork in the road so many people miss. They're seeking employment, not designing the system that employs others.
And it extended directly into their view of risk.
Yeah.
The poor dad's advice was always,
Oh, I know this one. Play it safe.
play it safe, don't take risks.
And the rich dad's view was much more analytical. Learn to manage risk.
A crucial distinction.
It is. Because avoiding risk means you avoid opportunity. Managing risk means you educate yourself, you test things, you seek knowledge to minimize the downside while, maximizing the potential upside. Avoidance is often riskier.
This contrast even showed up in how they viewed their family. The poor dad would rationalize his situation, saying, "The reason I'm not rich is because I have you kids."
The family is a financial burden.
Right. But the rich dad, he adopted this incredibly motivating perspective. The reason I must be rich is because I have you kids.
Responsibility is fuel, not an excuse. What a powerful reframe.
So here's where the rich dad gave them a practical daily exercise for the brain. He was just adamant about forbidding the statement, "I can't afford it."
Because that phrase is it's mental laziness. He said it makes the brain stop working.
You've given up.
You've given up the intellectual fight before it even starts.
Instead, he insisted on asking the question, how can I afford it?
And I love this part.
Me too. Because that simple shift, it forces your brain out of that fear center, the amygdala, and into the problem-solving part, the prefrontal cortex. You go from a resigned statement to a challenging question.
It's like doing mental push-ups every single day. You're strengthening the mind like a muscle. And nothing proves this better than their views on assets and liabilities.
This is maybe the single most important concept in the sources.
I think it is.
The educated father believed, like most of society, that the family home is the largest investment and our greatest asset.
But the rich dad just fundamentally disagreed. He argued, my house is a liability, and if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble.
So for everyone listening, we have to clarify the accounting perspective here. An asset in the rich dad's world, is anything that puts money into your pocket.
Into your pocket, regardless of its so-called value.
And a liability.
Is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that. When you own a house you live in, you have constant outflows.
Property taxes, insurance, maintenance.
Mortgage interest, all of it. Cash outflows. Now, if you own a rental property that generates cash flow, that's an asset. But the house you live in, it's a liability.
And failing to understand that one distinction is why so many high-income earners struggle. They just mistake their personal possessions for actual investments.
And then there's the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy of language. The poor dad always said, "I'll never be rich."
And his life confirmed it.
Of course. But the rich dad, even when he was totally broke after a huge business setback, still called himself rich.
That goes back to that core belief.
It does. He understood that wealth wasn't about the number in his bank account that day. He explained, there is a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary. Poor is eternal.
Broke is a condition, poor is a mindset.
Exactly. Poor is a state of mind that has surrendered, given up the fight.
Which brings us really smoothly to the first practical lesson the boys learned. Because the source material points out this huge structural failure in our education system.
Right. Schools teach you scholastic skills, professional skills.
Yeah.
How to be a doctor, a banker.
A lawyer, whatever. But they completely fail to teach financial skills.
So you can graduate with honors,
Yeah.
have a six-figure income potential, and still have the financial programming of someone who just doesn't understand cash flow or taxes or asset allocation. It's why highly educated people can earn so much and still be drowning in debt.
The initiation for the 9-year-old host and his friend Mike was driven by that feeling of desperation. You know, they felt poor, they wanted money, and they started to solve the problem with classic kid logic.
Which involved toothpaste tubes.
Lead toothpaste tubes. Their plan was pretty audacious. Collect the used tubes, melt the lead down on a grill.
And cast their own nickels using plaster molds.
They were going to solve poverty by, as the educated dad very quickly pointed out, counterfeiting.
A noble, if illegal, goal.
Executed with molten lead. But the poor dad, instead of just punishing them, he gently steered them toward Mike's father, the rich dad. He actually admitted that this man was truly brilliant with money.
And the rich dad, he agreed to teach them, but on one condition.
No classroom.
No classroom style. He said, you work for me, I'll teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you.
So the job was 10 cents an hour for 3 hours every Saturday, just dusting cans at one of his little stores.
And that work was deliberately excruciatingly boring. It was designed to test their commitment. After 3 agonizing weeks for a grand total of 90 cents, the host was ready to quit. He wanted a raise.
But this wasn't just a job. It was an emotional test, a crucible the rich dad designed.
And that's when the real lesson started, the confrontation.
Right. When the host accused the rich dad of not teaching him anything, the rich dad used this powerful metaphor. He said, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. Each push is life saying, wake up, there's something I want you to learn.
He was teaching them that feeling of being overworked, underpaid, that resentment, that is life's push. And the pivot point was the challenge of responsibility.
He said, start blaming me and thinking I'm the problem.
If you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser.
It's always easier to change yourself than to wait for your boss or the world to change for you.
And then came the ultimate psychological move. After that whole emotional push, the rich dad told the boys to keep working the same job for nothing.
Zero pay.
Zero. This was to force them to learn the critical lesson of how to not work for money.
Which brings us to the core trap, right? The rat race, which is fueled entirely by 2 emotions, fear and greed.
The fear of not paying your bills, the fear of being homeless, that fear gets you up and out the door to work every single day. It's a powerful negative driver.
But then the second that paycheck hits your account, the other emotion kicks in, greed. Or desire, you could call it.
The desire for a new car, a bigger house,
Or
a vacation.
Right, and that desire causes you to immediately increase your spending, take on new debt, which guarantees the fear comes right back next month to motivate you all over again.
And there it is, the endless pattern. Get up, go to work, pay bills, get up, go to work, pay bills. It's a surrender of your intellectual will driven by pure emotion.
And the rich dad tested this. He tempted the boys with more and more pay, finally offering a ridiculous $5 an hour.
Which was a monumental sum for a 9-year-old in 1956.
The source material says that the weak, needy part of the boy's soul, the desire, was activated, but the offer was so ridiculously big that the resilient, logical part took over. They chose to learn instead of taking the paycheck.
And that illustrates a really profound point. Money itself cannot soothe fear or desire.
No.
In fact, for a lot of wealthy people, the fear only gets worse. Now they're terrified of losing their millions, which forces them into even more conservative, emotionally driven financial decisions. It just locks them into the rat race at a higher income bracket.
And this fear and ignorance, it links directly back to the reality of taxes. The rich dad casually mentioned that he earns far more than the poor dad.
But pays less in taxes. And this is where financial education is absolutely critical. The average employee, the poor and middle class, they operate in what's called the E for employee, or S for self-employed, quadrant.
And they get taxed when they earn the money, they get taxed when they spend it.
They're taxed when they save it, and they're taxed when they die.
It's a financial slaughterhouse.
It is. Whereas the rich dad, operating in the B for business owner and I for investor, quadrants. He knows how to structure his income legally through corporations. He earns money, then he spends it on business expenses and investments, and he's taxed last, often on a tiny fraction of his gross income.
The problem isn't the lack of money.
Not at all. It's the lack of financial education that stops people from using the same legal structures that are available to everyone.
So after all that, the philosophy, the emotional tests, the tax reality check, the rich dad finally hammered home lesson 1.
The rich don't work for money.
The poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them.
And working for free was the necessary mental reset. It forced their minds to stop looking for the carrot, the paycheck, the security, and instead forced them to see opportunities that other people who were blinded by their need for a salary completely miss.
And their eyes opened. They spotted the store manager, Mrs. Martin, cutting the covers off comic books.
Right, before throwing the rest of the book away for distributor credit. To the distributor, that was just garbage. But to someone who wasn't working for a paycheck.
It was untapped value.
Exactly.
So they asked for the discarded books, promising not to resell them, and they created a whole new business model, the comic book library.
They set it up in Mike's basement. They charged 10 cents for 2 hours of unlimited reading.
Which was an undeniable bargain, considering a new comic book cost 10 cents just to buy.
They averaged about $9.50 a week in revenue. Then they hired Mike's sister for $1 a week to run the whole thing.
Which they learned was an invaluable lesson in how hard it is to find good staff and manage a real business.
The crucial takeaway here is that for 3 months, that business generated money for them even when they weren't physically there dusting cans. They stopped trading time for money.
Their imagination, which was sparked by the lack of a need for a paycheck, put them in control. That's the true application of Lesson 1.
And that really wraps up our deep dive into that initial programming. The whole structure of the source material suggests the main cause of financial struggle isn't a bad economy or low pay.
No, it's self-inflicted fear and ignorance.
The key, therefore, is to learn to use your emotions to think, rather than thinking with your emotions. You have a choice when life pushes you.
You can react emotionally, run out the door to a job you hate because you're scared of bills.
Which is just letting fear dictate your life.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to delay your reaction, engage the thinking part of your brain, and ask, is working harder at this for a short-term fix the best solution to my long-term problem?
That distinction, a job being a short-term fix to a long-term problem, is what we want to leave you with.
And if you look at the bigger societal picture, the sources warn us about this. History proves great civilizations collapse when the gap between the rich and the poor gets too wide because of this kind of financial ignorance.
Right. When professionals, doctors, lawyers, driven by their own fear and greed, escalate their fees, costs just spiral for everyone.
Society memorizes history, but as the source says, often not the lesson.
So the challenge for you as you move forward is this. Identify where you might be letting fear or desire, rather than logic and critical analysis, dictate your financial path. Are you chasing the carrot, or are you designing the field?
Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep that mind exercising.